This podcast is part of the Deluxe Edition Network. To find other great shows on the network, head over to deluxeeditionnetwork.com. That's deluxeeditionnetwork.com.
Welcome back to the Graveyard Club. I hope you've been enjoying the Hammer reviews because I have another one for you today. Let's talk about Frankenstein Created Woman.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
We talked about Hammer horror before, mainly their vampire movies, but they did do a series of Frankenstein movies with Peter Cushing as the Doctor. Not really following the novel as much as the James Whale movies, but what we have here is pure gold. Where the Universal films, I think, they followed the monster more. These films definitely followed Frankenstein, the Doctor, a lot more. So fuck it, I'll do the plot first before we get into the actual film. The film starts out with a man being sentenced to death by guillotine. Moments before he was put to bed, he spots his young son, Hans, and he shouts at him to go run and not to look at basically him being executed. And it's a great opening scene. This is directed by Terence Fisher. Again, he done Bride of Dracula. We talked about that here before. He done the original Dracula. He is basically the number one director in Hammer. So he done this one as well. So years later, the story follows the son, Hans. And he becomes the assistant to the one and only Dr. Frankenstein. But it's not Henry Frankenstein in this one, it's Baron Frankenstein. So he's basically experimenting with souls leaving the body. It's an interesting take because it's usually full-on science in the Frankenstein films. This one's a bit more like supernatural in a way, you know. So there's a good opening with the Baron. He freezes himself and he is awakened by his assistants with electricity and smelling salts. So anyone who's seen this film knows exactly what I'm talking about. So Frankenstein is basically after proving the soul doesn't leave the body at instant death. So to celebrate the return of Frankenstein, he sends Hans to the pub to grab a bottle of champers. And that's where he sees the pub owner's daughter, Christina. She's very important, so make sure you remember her. She feels the Baron is up to no good and his experiments are evil. There's a lot of rumours going around that village about Frankenstein. So as Hans is walking out, these three snobby fuckers walk in, and I'll be honest with you, I love them. They take over the whole pub, and when one demands the pub owner's daughter to serve them. Now Christina is deformed and walks all dodgy, so one of the snobby fuckers demands her to serve the drink to him, and you know what happens next. She spills the drink all over. A fight breaks out, and then Hans takes on the three posh fuckers like. And Hans actually manages to take them on easy enough, but that's when the police walk in and sees him with a knife, but they end up letting him go. So that's when Dr. Frankenstein walks in, and he recovers one of the posh lads that got cut at the fight, and he obviously wanted to get his champagne, and it skips to Hans, and he climbs up to Christina to get the leg over, the dirty little fucker. But again, it skips to the three snobs, and they're drunk, they're shouting, throwing abuse up at Christina. Like, she obviously lives in some, like, over the pub, and they're shouting up abuse at her, like. So they're drinking, and they ends up making their way back into the pub that they were in. They break back into it, and obviously they're helping themselves to the drinks. So it goes to the pub owner then, and he realises after forgetting something in the pub. So he goes back to the pub, and they all hide. And this is a real random scene. You're not really expecting it. And as soon as the pub owner catches the three lads in the pub, they just kill him to death. I think it's by accident, but it's a very random scene. So meanwhile all this is happening, the Baron has finally found a way to conquer death. And even his right hand man is actually getting a bit worried. Now, if you remember him, he's actually in the Vampire Circus as well. I was talking about him. So basically Frankenstein wants to put a soul that he's after capturing into another body, and this is basically how he makes his monster in the film. So this just works out beautiful for Frankenstein. Hans gets pinned for the murder of the pub owner. The 3 lads get off way with it nice and easy. So that's basically Frankenstein's soul right there that he has nice and handy. Like, he wants to preserve Hans' soul to put into another body. And Christina is in a carriage going by, and she notices that there's a guillotine death sentence going on. So she gets out of the carriage and realises it's actually Hans. So Frankenstein gets a second body. Christina basically throws herself off a bridge and kills herself. Very crazy graphic scene, like not really expecting it when you first see it. So basically all falls into place for Frankenstein. He gets his 2 bodies nice and easy, all in the one day. So you know what happens next. Baron Frankenstein basically puts Hans' soul into Christina's body, and she is now the creature, the monster of the film. And he basically goes on a revenge killing spree of the 3 lads, the 3 posh lads I was talking about that pinned Hans for the murder. And some great scenes. She picks one by one off, but on the second kill she leaves Hans' name written in blood next to the dead body. So this is obviously now making the whole village suspicious of, Hans is coming back from the dead and all this type of stuff. So they're wondering, and the only finger you could point to is Frankenstein. Just before we continue, I want to talk about the Deluxe Edition network. We're a part of this network, and it's a home for a number of podcasts. So I'm going to leave a link in the description. You need to go over there and check it out. And yeah, just before we continue on, I know Dee isn't here with us today, but let's hear her talk about one of our good sponsors, and that's Sunday Scaries. Make sure you're checking them out in the description as well. Enjoy.
Life is scary when you wake up and realise that you texted your ex a you up text. Yeah, we all deal with those Sunday scaries. The oh shit, stressful, nervous, can't sleep, dread feelings that hit you on a Sunday evening when you're thinking about work or school or just life for tomorrow. Unfortunately, you can feel that same pit in your stomach any day of the week. Sunday Scaries CBD gummies were made to defeat the crap life throws at us. These are the perfect CBD gummies for professionals on the grind, super moms, students, party animals, regretful drunk sexters, and everybody in between. I am a terrible sleeper. My scaries tend to hit me at night time, so I end up spending precious noon hours staring at the ceiling questioning life. So I'm always looking for new ways to get better sleep. Sunday Scary CBD gummies help me decompress, clear my mind and fall asleep so I can wake up like a fully functioning human being. We all have the right to live scare-free. So whether you need to take the edge off, calm your mind, sleep better, or just chill, take 2 CBD gummies every day to keep those scaries away. Let me save you with our 10% discount. Visit sundayscaries.com and use our promo code GRAVEYARD. That's GRAVEYARD, all capital letters, for 10% off at sundayscaries.com.
So Frankenstein is basically on the run from the police. The police end up coming to Frankenstein's house and he jumps out the window. So the mission is now to find Christina. And Christina is on the way to kill the 3rd and last victim that pinned Hans down for the murder. And it's a great scene. The 2 of them are on the carriage together and he has no idea. He's actually trying to escape the village from the murder. Like, everyone thinks Hans is back from the dead. Nobody is thinking it's this blonde girl. She basically looks like Christina, except Christina's not deformed anymore. She has blonde hair. So the ending of the film wraps up fairly quickly. She ends up killing him. She brings him in for a picnic in through the woods and ends up killing him. And Frankenstein then comes and basically is telling her to come back. Everything will be alright. She just needs a bit of help. And she knows she's after doing everything she needed to do. And again, she throws herself off a cliff, killing herself again. Now, see, the thing is, she was motivated by Hans. There's a great scene in the film where she's talking to Hans' head. And, like, Hans is, like, communicating with her through telepathically, if you know what I mean. Like, that basically wraps up our film. Ends, as I said, fairly quickly. I really enjoyed this film. For anyone that has watched it, just let me know what you think of this film. It's definitely a different Frankenstein film in the series. A lot of the other ones go for that scientific, gothic style. This one, I feel it's less spooky, and it focuses more on the characters. There's some great characters. We've been talking about them. The three posh lads, great characters like the assistant, the other doctor. This film, I think, focuses more on building up the characters than being proper spooky. Like, as I even said, like, the creature in this isn't like ghoulish or monster like. It's basically a blonde girl. Like, it's Christina with blonde hair, you know. And another thing I find, like, especially in these Hammer Frankenstein films, the doctor can be an evil fucker and fucking right evil cunt in a lot of these movies. But in this one, Frankenstein Created Woman, I feel like he's not as more bad than he is good. Do you know what I mean? Like, he is just a genuine doctor, and something happened and it was out of his control. Where in a lot of other films, he's making the creature do his killing. Christine, it was on her own. She was doing her own thinking in this film, like, from hands. The doctor had nothing to do with it, like, do you know what I mean? And do you know how a lot of the Hammer films get a lot of stick these days from being very slow and boring and they drag on and all? This is actually Quentin Tarantino's one of his favourite movies. So that's saying something. This Frankenstein Created Woman, it's a different one to a lot of the rest of them, and it's even for a Hammer entry. This one came out in 1969, so this is still Hammer at their height of their powers. So even though there's not a lot of spook in this one, it's definitely up there. It's probably my favourite Frankenstein of the Hammer series. Now, I couldn't really compare it to the James Whale Frankenstein and Brides of Frankenstein. Especially Brides of Frankenstein, that is literally probably one of my favourite films ever. Do you know what I mean? I have a real good soft spot for that film, and I probably will end up talking about it at some stage. So leave a like if you do want to hear more about that. But I do have to respect where Hammer were going with these films. They were kind of keeping away from the source material, and they were going in a completely different direction, where it was more focusing on the doctor and how evil the doctor can be. Whereas I feel like Colin Cloy's Frankenstein was a bit more sympathetic, like I was feeling for him a lot of the times. I don't know, I think Hammer just have a great way of shooting their movies. I love the set designs, the costumes. I think this one is meant to be set in either Sweden or Switzerland, or even Germany. Like, it's confusing to know which one. It's definitely not like a typical English village like the rest of the, like, say, the Dracula films. These Frankenstein films definitely have a different feel to the Christopher Lee Draculas, but again, they all have Peter Cushing in it, and he is number one for me. I think I actually prefer him as the Doctor than Van Helsing in the other films. He plays a fucking stormer. I know a lot of people know him from the Star Wars and all, but I know him from these movies. He is a fucking treat to look at on the screen. So right now, this is when I want to hear your thoughts. Comment below if you've seen this film or if you're even interested in seeing it. I love the Hammer films. I've loads on DVD and Blu-ray, and I want to review every single fucking one of them. So right now, leave a like right now and a comment if you've seen this or if you're interested and you want to see more. Again, I've a few other ones on the channel if you just want to check them out as well. So definitely have a look through the channel. I have a few Hammer films on there, and they're worth checking out if you're interested in these sort of things. Let's check out a podcast from the Deluxe Edition Network.
This is Take on the World with
Johnny.
and Mike. And, people always ask me, hey, you got a podcast? What's it about?
I don't know. You ever want to cut your fingers off or learn about a sharp knife?
We could tell you that.
How about murder mysteries or hauntings or any kind of fringe subject?
Anything you could think of. We take on everything because we take on the world.
Now you do a take on.
So I think it's about time that I give my final review of the film, what I don't like and do like, and ratings and all that type of stuff. So I'll just get the ratings out of the way. I'll give this film, a 7.8. It's almost at an 8. Only because it is missing a little bit of the Hammer spookiness that the Draculas have. And if you see my other review, I gave The Bride of Dracula a solid 8. That is still my favourite Hammer film. So if you're interested in that, definitely check that review out. If you've seen the film or not, definitely check that review out. But yeah, a 7.8. I did like the acting, the setting, Peter Cushing, the story itself was really good. The only thing that was letting it down, it didn't feel too much of a horror film to me. It was more like more of a drama film. But I didn't mind that for a change, like, because a lot of the Hammer films, it's just gothic. They're beating that stick. But yeah, I did like it. It was a different take on the Frankenstein completely. Different story, different setting, the whole lot. I love the idea of putting the soul into the body instead of the whole scientific lab. Like, it didn't really have much of a scientific lab. But for what it was a great film. I really enjoyed it. Quentin Tarantino's favourite film, by the way. But yeah, if you haven't seen this, you definitely need to check it out. And just before I log off, I have another sponsor I want to talk about, Doobie Energy Drinks. It's basically an energy drink you make at home, and it's much better than the other muck that's out in the market, and you know the ones that I'm talking about. We have a 10% discount code over there. All you have to do is type in the Graveyard Club on your checkout, and you get yourself a nice 10% off. So definitely use the links below. The podcasts of the month, to the network, everything is in the description. So make sure you're checking them out. And actually, Casey and Ray are actually back. They just released a new interview. They've been gone for about a month. So I'll leave that link to a video as well in the description. So definitely check that out. And yeah, just before I log off, I want to talk about the podcast of the month over on the Deluxe Edition Network. As you know, it's a home of many podcasts. So this month of August, it's Quad Pro Quo and the Broken System podcast. So I'm going to leave a link to their podcast in the description, and make sure you check them out. They're great podcasts, like professional grade podcasts, and you really need to check them out. So shout out to everyone over there, and we're all helping each other, we're all sharing each other's stuff, and it's really good to see. So make sure you're checking them out. So if you made it this far in the podcast, I'd just like to say, first off, thank you for watching. And anyone that's been liking the videos and subscribing, it's really helping a lot lately. I'll be honest with you, it's really keeping me going. It's really nice to see. We're almost at 200 subs. And I was only thinking there the other day, I never done a special video for 100 subs. So maybe when I hit 200 subs, I'll do a nice hour-long podcast about I was thinking for the 100 one, Friday the 13th series or something like that. That'd be good. But yeah, subscribe to the channel. We have a lot more videos coming. I want to review the Exorcist films before the new one comes out. We have a top 5 found footage film that we're still working on. And I do want to talk about a lot more Hammer films as well, and maybe even Universal films. So again, subscribe if you want to stick around for that. Yeah, so Frankenstein Created Woman, a 7.8. If you haven't seen it, for any of the American viewers out there and you haven't seen it, you need to check this one out. This is a really good one. It's a different one. Then it's definitely different than the other ones, but it's definitely worth the watch. So I'm glad people seem to be enjoying the Hammer reviews. I think the Bride the Dracula video is almost at 3k views, and that's something else for me. You know, that's really nice to see. And the Vampire Circus is almost touching 1k. So come on. We're getting there. So that'll do it for today's podcast. We're coming at you real soon. I want to get more regular uploads going. So make sure you're listening on Spotify if you're on the go and you can't watch the videos. But if you can, make sure you visit the YouTube channel. I really want to get this grown. So again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Good luck.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!